The storm rolled heavy across the plains that night. The kind of storm that makes a man's bones ache and the air itself tremble. When rancher Eli Turner found himself riding through sheets of rain toward the abandoned barn at the edge of his land, searching for a stray calf that had wandered off before the sky broke. But what he discovered inside was no animal, no lost beast of burden. It was a woman, curled up in the hay like a ghost left behind, shivering, drenched, her torn dress clinging to her like a second skin, and her eyes, when they lifted to his, were sharp with fear, but dulled with something else, something colder, as if she had been emptied out of hope long before this storm ever came. Eli's breath caught because he knew this land was unforgiving, but he had not expected to find another soul hiding in its shadows. Still, he stepped forward carefully, his voice steady, asking if she was hurt, if she needed food or water, and for a long moment she just stared at him as though deciding whether he was savior or executioner. Then, with a broken laugh that echoed against the barn's wooden walls, she whispered, "I'm used goods, rancher. Don't waste your time." And the bitterness in her voice hit him harder than the rain, for he could hear not only pain, but the weight of every cruel word that had ever been thrown at her. Eli knelt, ignoring the mud soaking his jeans, and reached for the cloth she held pressed against her arm where blood had seeped through. He pulled it back gently and froze, not at what he saw on her skin, but at the truth behind her words. The bruises, the cuts, the scars of someone treated not as a human being, but as something to be owned, used, discarded, and he couldn't speak because the sight stole his breath, his anger rising like the storm outside. Yet beneath that anger was a sorrow so heavy, it nearly bent him to the ground. She tried to laugh again, hollow and sharp, telling him she was broken beyond repair. But Eli shook his head slowly, his jaw tight, and whispered, "No one's goods. You're not property. You're alive, and that means you still matter." She turned her face away, unwilling to believe, yet her trembling hands betrayed the small flicker of hope she couldn't smother. And in that barn, lit only by lightning, through the cracks, Eli made a silent vow that whatever darkness had marked her, it would not define her, not while he still had strength to fight against it. The days that followed tested that vow in ways Eli could never have imagined, for he brought her back to his ranch, gave her shelter, gave her bread and water, but more than that, he gave her silence when she needed it, and presence when the silence grew too heavy. Yet each time he tried to speak of the future, she shut him down with the same bitter armor. "Don't waste kindness on me, rancher. I'm not worth it." Her words cut deep, but Eli never flinched, for he saw in her eyes not worthlessness, but a war waged inside her soul, one that left her believing the lies men had forced upon her. He worked beside her in the fields, showed her how to mend fences and tend horses, not to burden her, but to remind her that she was capable. And slowly he saw the shadow of a smile flicker across her face when the Colt nuzzled her hand. Slowly he saw her stand a little taller when the work left her tired but proud. Yet even as the days grew lighter, the nights were haunted, for she would wake with screams muffled into her hands, shaking as though dragged back into memories of men who had stripped away her dignity. And Eli would sit on the porch, waiting, not touching, not pressing, just letting her know she wasn't alone in the dark anymore. Until one night she broke, sitting beside him under the stars, tears spilling as she confessed the truth of what had been done, the hands that treated her like a thing, the voices that told her she was ruined, that no man would ever see her as more than used goods. And when she finished, her voice was raw, asking him why he bothered, why he cared. And Eli turned to her, his eyes steady, and told her that she was not what had been done to her. She was not the lies whispered into her skin. She was a survivor, and that was more strength than most men could ever claim. The silence that followed was thick, heavy, but in that silence her shoulders loosened for the first time, as if she had been carrying the weight of the world alone, and finally realized she didn't have to anymore. And as dawn broke across the plains, painting the land in fire and gold, she whispered not laughter, but something softer, something like belief that maybe, just maybe, she could be more than the scars they left. Eli didn't answer with words, only with the steady presence of a man who would never see her as anything less than human, worthy, whole, And friends, if you believe that stories like this deserve to be told, if you believe in the power of hope even in the darkest places, then subscribe to this channel. Because the story of survival and love doesn't end here. It's only just begun, and I promise you won't want to miss where it leads next.